creatures are born. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
Hundreds of craftsmen designed and constructed the various wardrobes, props, and sets which made up the Star Trek universe. Dozens of makeup artists transformed us from everyday people to the many alien species like the all-too-familiar Klingons or Borg. The characters that have become part of American folklore, like the ever-logical Vulcans, are now all permanent fixtures in the hearts and minds of any of us who have found a home in the Star Trek universe. And let's not forget to mention a certain starship named Enterprise, without which we could never have traveled to strange new worlds.
Let's go.
From the largest set pieces and models to the smallest prop, each item in this auction holds special meaning for many people.
The things that people have celebrated for 40 years are available. Lots of people are going to be able to touch and hold things that they thought they'd never see.
It's about recognizable emotional value. I sound like an auction expert now. Recognizable emotional value. REV. Some have it, some don't. You know, if you're going to get Picard's uniform, that has REV. If you're going to get the headband that Spock wore in Star Trek IV Save the Whales, that's got high REV value. Everybody remembers that headband. Tribbles, those things are going to go for a lot of money because they have high recognizability, emotional value.
I guess these things will bring people a lot of pleasure to own them. I mean, I have bits of memorabilia which are significant to me and meaningful, you know, things that have belonged to other actors and so forth.
I think it's obviously for Star Trek fans, you know, throughout the world.
Obviously, if the alternative is all this stuff gets thrown away, I'd rather see fans get it who can cherish it and take care of it and have it live on that way.
Maybe that's a good thing that they were auctioned off because they'll be loved, they'll be cherished, they'll be looked after.
I think it's just fine. Series is over. Put it to some good use.
Where's Mr. Okuda? I demand to speak to him immediately. We've got the sticky painted hero version.
We actually brought in a colleague of ours, his name is Dave Rossi. He worked on Star Trek for many years. He's associate producer on Star Trek Enterprise, and he knows the subject well. We've brought him in to free us up so that we can say, okay, go research this, you know, pull out the DVDs, take a look, make sure this is, this Vulcan costume was used in, you know, Star Trek 3 and not 4 or whatever, which of course are, you know, things that we can do, but extremely time consuming. And Dave's great because he's very well organized and he knows the material, so it's great.
This is a stunt tricorder. We're trying to track down where it was introduced. We know it's Voyager. We're just trying to figure out what season of Voyager.
A tricorder is a device that, you know, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what it does. It takes readings and allows us to progress the plot.
Pulse and blood pressure are normal. I'm getting hyperactive fibrogenic activity. This is odd.
What is it? So it can kind of read virtually anything that you want it to read. In fact, the tricorders are probably used a little too much on the show.
Mr. Spock, find something?
Adjusting my tricorder to register for silicon.
Interesting.
There was something called Phase 2. It was the second Star Trek television series that didn't go. It was like 3 weeks out of being in front of the camera, and they pulled the plug, and they made Star Trek the motion picture because a little film called Star Wars came out. And so Paramount said, oh, well, you know, we have this property called Star Trek, why don't we make a motion picture? So in here are some outlines of the stories that were going to be for the next television series, Phase 2. A lot of those stories were redone and modified for the second season of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Impossible.
What would a Starfleet officer be without his costume? Wardrobe in the future takes a creative vision. The costumes of Star Trek identify each character and enhance the visual spectacle on the screen.
Oh, Bob Blackman, he had like the hardest job of anybody. It's hard enough to be a wardrobe designer on a regular show. But now imagine where every week you have to come up with wardrobe for different species every week. And you have to think of brand new stuff every week.
The script never gave you a lot of description, which I'm thankful for, because then I wouldn't have to sort of fight preconceived notions of what they should be, whereas I could become much more of the creative force by saying, you know, these guys seem sinister in this way, or they, you know, this guy seems smooth and sort of oily, and maybe he's like a used car salesman, or maybe he's like a, you know, a hired gun, or maybe he's, you know, I could take it in another way that sort of would be my interpretation of it.
So when you think about Bob Blackman and his imagination, huh? All these people, you know, different species, different shapes, sizes, huh?
But the Deans, these are organ-eating aliens. What does an organ-eating alien wear? Right? 7 of 9.
Along with the traditional Starfleet uniforms, we had dress uniforms and we had spacesuits for when they were outside the ship.
This is the helmet, I believe. Helmet, vacuform, plastic helmet. It's a jumpsuit with a jacket, gray plastic tubing, vacuform, buckles at sides, LEDs, and there's a battery pack in the back.
You know what I never understood about the costumes? Where were the pockets?
There are no pockets.
No pockets. I'm so accustomed to pockets. It's tough.
And for Quark, that was difficult not to have pockets.
We had nothing in our pockets. We had no place to put our hands. Where'd you put all your stuff? But the shoes were comfortable.
The cosmic cheerleader outfit? Yeah. The only good thing about that outfit was that the boys were wearing them too. I wasn't the only one in a micro miniskirt. There were some guys walking around in miniskirts too, so I didn't feel quite as bad because I figured I looked better than they did in them.
The spacesuits were a bit much. I do remember a lot of this, a lot of the Picard maneuver where we all had to pull down, and because Rick Berman and Blackman were obsessive about wrinkles in the uniform, and it was...
And it would be, he might be having just sat in the captain's chair, usually, or at a desk chair. And because of the spandex, when you sit, just like my t-shirt, when you sit, it would ride up like that. So he would, just as he would sit, would grab the fold and just pull it down so that it would be picture perfect. So when they pushed in, he had this perfect image. It was brilliant.
The costume that we really hated was the costume from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. You know, that spandex, body-tight outfit, you know. One of the outfits was one piece with the shoes attached.
And it was kind of a monochromatic colors. They were going to all be gray, and they decided it looked awful, and then they got the beige and the bronze.
The zipper came up the back, and then under the armpit and over the shoulder. Grown men and women couldn't answer Mother Nature's call without our dressers following us into the men's room or the ladies' room.
That sounds like a horror story. You suppose there's any truth in it?
We said, if we have to go through that indignity again, there won't be a Star Trek II. And that's why you saw the design of the wardrobe change from Star Trek: The Motion Picture to Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
You can't be serious. The thing is virtually made out of stone. Help it. Treat it. I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. You're a healer. There's a patient. That's an order.